it scares you a little bit.
I think you want it to, though, right? Because, like, if there's anybody in the channel that doesn't know it's coming, they want to know they're being recorded.
You know what? I guess that would make perfect sense, actually, because I wouldn't want some, because I hear sometimes when you join the Discord, it's like, bloop, they're like, who's that? Yeah, you're right. That's perfect. I don't. But all right. Real quick, welcome everyone back to another episode of Just Boolin'. Today we have an amazing guest, one of our great friend, closest friend. I'm gonna say his screen name is not his government name. Raziel Minster, really fucking dope guy. Sketch can attest. Really dope guy. I met, going back, I met both Sketch and Clint, about 2 years now.
No government. We'll cut it out in post.
well, I say sketch is like, oh shit, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll cut it out in post. But yeah, I met them both. It's about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Going on 2 years ago. Started as just people across the table at Magic Nights to hanging out at each other's houses, starting campaigns, stopping campaigns, movie nights, just real friends. And these are two people that can attest to anyone who knows me. I have at least two real friends.
At least two. Although it's debatable if I'm real or not.
Oh boy.
So we invited Raziel here to talk to us a little bit about something that we know he has a lot of knowledge for. He have ran multiple campaigns, currently running one right now, right?
No, I got a lot cooking right now, if I'm being honest.
Oh, okay. So
give us a list of before we get anything. Let's get a running tally of what you're capable of right now. What are you running currently? What all the games you're currently running?
All right,
even ones that are just like sporadic.
We have our weekly Pathfinder First Edition long play that we do every Friday. I'm not running, but participating in a 5th edition campaign once a week. And then on Mondays, every Monday, we cycle through, the group cycles through 4 different games. We have a Powered by the Apocalypse game that we are playing that is adapting Chaosium's Masks of Nyarlathotep. So that's a Call of Cthulhu title being run in a different, more user-friendly, I think, system. We've got another Powered by the Apocalypse game that I'm co-GMing called Infinity Drive, which is sci-fi, cowboy bebop, space dandy type stuff.
Nice.
We've got, I'm co-DMing a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon as well with our friend Kitty. And then the last one is every now and then we'll pick up a round or two of Honey Heist, but I'm not DMing that one. I just participate in that one. That's a bunch of woodland critters trying to steal honey from humans, Hanna-Barbera style.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm at 9. So basically, your whole life is adventure most days.
Yeah, his life is dope and he does dope shit.
I get around. I love tabletop RPGs first and foremost. I don't think I've ever met one that I genuinely disliked. I can find something good about them. So, and I just love spending good time with good friends. So it's a great crossroads.
He has found tabletops he doesn't like. He just adapts them to other systems.
So that actually leads us to our very first question. And what got you into tabletop?
I started off. So I've always been a nerd, man. Middle school, high school, reading books, playing games with my friends. The first real crack at it was a buddy of mine. We were in like 8th grade. Introduces me to a CRPG, a computer RPG called Neverwinter Nights, and I got a copy of it. And I still play that game to this day. It's an OG game, but it's one of my favorites. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I just thought, it's a really cool RPG, a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, a lot of content. I'll play this until the heat death of the universe. And then I had that game and games like it for some years. And he just kind of saddled up to me one day and he's like, you like all of this Forgotten Realms material. Why have you never played Dungeons and Dragons? And I just looked at him like I'd never seen him before because I didn't know what that was at the time. But he explains to me what it is. I'm like, dude, that sounds awesome. Why are we not doing that right now? So then he introduced me to some friends of his that played Dungeons and Dragons, played with them for a few sessions. Didn't really jive with some of the individuals in that group, but I learned enough to forever alter the course of my nerdly future.
Nice.
That said, I know you a lot from DMing and stuff like that, and I from the outside looking in, only been in a couple of campaigns prior to the ones I was in with you. I only done like a few like Starfighter campaigns and maybe one D&D campaign and some like minor cyberpunk stuff, but nothing like at the extent that we did. So what was your big transition from player to wanting to DM, because it's a whole new different realm?
It is. It is a night and day difference. So referencing that first group that I was with, we played a few sessions. Things didn't really shake out, and the guy that was DMing at the time was sort of a forever DM. That group got chopped and mashed and rebuilt a couple times, but one day someone just threw the Dungeon Master's Guide at me because we were playing D&D 3.5 at the time, and we just happened to need a cycle of GMs, and I picked up the DMG and started reading through it and started putting together just horrible games. I mean, some of the worst material I've ever done, just slapdash immediately together. But it was my step into it. I started DMing then, and then I ended up becoming sort of a forever DM by virtue of I wanted to do it. Like, I really enjoyed it. I love storytelling. I always have. I love writing. I love spinning a yarn. If you haven't noticed already, I'll talk until you tell me to shut up. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the social aspect of it. I've always been a drama llama. I love the rule of cool. It was like it was meant to be. And I loved it so much that I did it for 16 years without playing a character. I did it just forever DM for 16 years.
So what was the first thing outside of DMing that you tried? It was just here recently with the current group?
So we did, let's see. I went through 2 or 3 groups in high school where I was forever DM, and then I started a couple when we got into college. Those kind of all fell apart. And then I didn't get, our mutual friend Biscuit, I didn't get a chance to actually play a character until he and I met, because I introduced him to the game, and very much the same way I picked up DMing, he picked up DMing. He was like, "Oh, this sounds awesome. I want to do this." So he put together a game. I played in it. We had a phenomenal time. And then our late friend Ray also gave me the opportunity to play at a couple of his sessions, which was phenomenal. Iconic memories that I'll never forget.
Absolutely.
But if I'm being entirely honest, it's only been in recent years that I have met groups of people whom I could trust well enough to do the job in a way that wouldn't threaten. This is going to sound super pompous, sort of the sanctity of the task, because I take being a DM super serious. I treat it like a job. Like I it's second to none for me, because it's one of my greatest passions.
Oh, I remember. This reminds me of the time that there was something, and I asked for the background of like one of the characters or something like that. And you said,
and I sent you like 3 paragraphs of backstory.
It was a novel, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I take it seriously, man. I love to do it, and there are, humble brag, there are a few things in this world that I consider myself genuinely good at. That's one of them. So
I will attest.
I put my whole foot in that.
I will attest to his skill myself. Being someone who comes from video games, as the sort of medium of choice. Obviously, I grew up with books, fantasy, and sci-fi were my thing. But video games, I got to participate in the action. I heard about D&D in college, and I got to play like a couple sessions of what must have been 4th edition at the time, because it was back in like 2012.
That tracks.
Or no, 2013. Yeah. So that was the only time I got to play. And then cut to some years later, I hear about Pathfinder from this guy for the first time. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. Is it like D&D? And he's like, better. And then he shows me a page, and he's like, you can build stuff. And I'm like, what?
To that point too, I knew because you and I had known each other for a while through college and Magic the Gathering and a couple of other things. You and I had kind of established a rapport, and I recognized that more than a role play or like kind of theater of the mind type, you were a number and mechanics guy, and you wanted to watch the mechanics do backflips and watch all the numbers crunch and stuff like that. And admittedly, there are a lot of things that I could complain about when it comes to Pathfinder, but if you like numbers and you like mechanics, it's the right game for you.
Yeah. But the funny thing, and to reel that back in before I get too off topic, but the funny thing about that is, he was able to make the experience fun for me still. He actually my first Pathfinder game was one that we basically sat down and him more than myself obviously, but we adapted from one of my favorite sets and my first actual set that I participated in from Magic the Gathering, which was Rise of the Eldrazi. And not only did I get to like help craft the story just a tiny bit, but in being able to see those see the numbers do things. And being that focused on it, he was still able to tell a compelling story enough, pulling it straight out of his ass, where he could keep my squirrel brain in line. Where I'm like, I'm trying to do anime shit, but he's also telling this wild ass story. Like, and he did it, and that was, and I wasn't the only one that was new to Pathfinder. I think our whole group was new to Pathfinder.
Yes, we taught that whole group to play Pathfinder.
And 90% of us are squirrels.
Yeah, that's the job, though, man. I mean, and not to make it sound like work. I loved every minute of it because to this day, Rise of the Eldrazi goes in my top 3. Like that game was solid all the way through. Rushed in some places, but absolutely solid. And I would go back and do it again.
as the kids say, that game has children.
Oh God!
It knew someone biblically.
Oh my God! Yeah, I guess so.
Man, you guys, I was trying to think about like when my very first experience, because I didn't play I didn't play any sessions, so I literally was an adult, like with kids. Like I was like late. Okay, I moved here in 2015, so it had to be 2013, 14. It's when I first had like my first sit down. We're doing character sheets. We're blah, 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 blah. But I didn't realize until my later years, my very first real experience with it was playing the Shadowrun game for Super Nintendo. I mean, Super Nintendo. I didn't know it was role playing. It was just a cool game that I got to fucking do hijack shit and fucking fight people and shoot and have fucking techno powers.
Oh, dude, they got all of us that way. I didn't know until I talked to this nerd that I have been reading D&D material for years. The Dragonlance series that I got into when I was in high school is actually based off of a D&D campaign, like an old D&D campaign.
Dragonlance, Living Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms,
what is it?
Ravenloft.
Yeah.
They're all that is old Dungeons and Dragons setting. I am forever a Forgotten Realms nerd. I love that setting.
Absolutely. Question for me actually, if you don't mind, Isaiah. In the last like 5 years, we've seen the rise of like obviously D&D on YouTube and people tuning in to watch people role play. And I mean, it's a different world now. It used to be we couldn't imagine seeing this on screen. Like half people couldn't imagine doing this in their own living rooms.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago where like people were shunning other people for this kind of stuff. And now they have like regular channels have how much viewership nowadays?
Crazy viewership. There's this one I saw that literally had, sorry to interrupt, but there's this literally had like their production value and setup. This huge table with fucking all these figurines and stuff, and like 18 different camera angles. Like,
Matt Mercer.
Sessions seriously right
now.
Yeah, like Matt Mercer is blowing the thing wide. I always say like, if you can get the pretty people to do it, everybody will come. I'll say that to the day I die because I mean I have proof. But anyway, my question was with the whole pop D&D versus trad D&D, I guess you call it whatever. How do you see the future of the perception of D&D? as far as like with it now being so mainstream? Now we have we have shows about it. We have Stranger Things.
I think that it has the potential to be great for the hobby, but it's only going to be great for the hobby if the people like myself and other guys that have been doing this for a while are prepared to kind of take a stand for what's good for the hobby, for lack of a better term. We just went through the whole D&D 5th edition OGL crisis, BS a while back, and the community handled that exactly the way that we needed to. But beyond just backlashing when something is changed, we need to start backlashing to things that aren't necessarily good for us, right? Like, and it comes from, like, you can't get everybody on the same page 100%. I know that's never going to happen, but, like, for me, the concept...
I'm going to stop you right there for a minute, just in a few words for those listening who aren't quite aware of the OGL thing. Can you give us just a short summary of that?
Yeah, for sure. So whenever, oh man, I got to unpack like decades of D&D lore. So when Dungeons and Dragons, I want to say 3rd edition came out. Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition came out with something called an OGL, an open gaming license. And that is them essentially saying that as long as you attribute this content inside this open gaming license to Wizards of the Coast and you don't use any of our licensed product, you can print material for the OGL without infringing on copyright. So it didn't cover it. So it allowed you to use things like the Dungeons and Dragons core mechanic, D20 dice rolls, the classes and races and stuff like that. You were able to use anything that wasn't proprietary setting, certain monsters that belong to certain people. It kind of had a lot of meandering lines as to what you could and couldn't use, but it was essentially a community use policy. And that's not a perfect description for it because it's very kind of nitnoid in what it picks at. But
right.
I say that to say, 3rd edition comes out, we have the OGL. 3.5 edition is released as an update to 3rd edition. The OGL is there. 4th edition comes out, the OGL is there. 5th edition comes out, the OGL is there. It has, despite the changes in Dungeons & Dragons throughout time, the OGL hadn't really gone anywhere or been changed. It actually is the reason that Pathfinder exists, to be honest with you, because Paizo bought the rights to the 3.5 OGL from Wizards of the Coast to create Pathfinder 1st edition. Anyway, that's ancient history. When this was last year sometime, so 2023, actually I think it was 2022, Wizards of the Coast decided, and I'm speculating because there was a whole lot of finger pointing. I'm assuming Hasbro felt like they weren't monetizing Dungeons and Dragons well enough, and they started trying to change. About that. Yeah, they started trying to change the OGL in ways that would require people that made a certain amount of money or used it in a certain way to pay them dividends, essentially. It had a whole bunch of other like really shitty language in it, and the minute it dropped, the whole community was as a whole just like, nah, it ain't going down like that. We're not going to sit here. Like, as it is, your products are already expensive and they're already declining in quality. We're not going to sit here and be taken to the woodshed like this. And there was massive outcry, and they backpedaled, and then we outcried again because the backpedaling was false. They were just putting on airs the first time. So we basically beat them into submission at one point. Like, look, either you straighten up Fly Right, or we're never going to buy this shit again. And they overturned the whole thing. The OGL did get updated in name, I think, but its language is still very much the same. I think the best part about all that came out of that is there are other publishers like Paizo and other third-party, publishers for these games that now have their own OGL licenses that rival the OGL. Like Paizo has the ORC, the Open Role-Playing Community license, I think is what it's called.
So instead of even jumping through Wizards hoops, they go through theirs, which are more lenient and stuff like that. Yeah. That's fucking awesome. That's the community taking care of the community.
I agree. And I think that there needs to be more of that, not just from the standpoint of standing up to the corporations that own these properties. I think there needs to be more guidance from the people that are dyed in the wool and they've been around this for a while to teach people what is best about these games, right? Because I'll give you a perfect example. One thing that I see a lot is arguments over changing mechanics to make things, I hesitate to say easier to grasp because it sounds like I'm talking down to the new players, because there are new players I've watched pick it up and walk away with it. But there's a lot of changes that are made either to simplify things or streamline things or remove mechanics that they feel are cumbersome, or even to change how content is perceived by the people that receive it. I think that's a big misstep. It's a bunch of wasted energy, because the beautiful thing about Dungeons and Dragons is if they print a setting that I think is just garbage, it's a dumpster fire, I'm never going to want it, I can take it and change it and homebrew it and run it the way I want to. I can make it better. I can change, if they release the greatest setting that's ever been made, I'm still free to change it, play with it, modify it, and all that stuff. One thing I
didn't think anyone was limited. It sounds like these people don't realize they're not limited.
I think that's what it is there are, because the hobby is so wide and so easy to get into now because it's so accessible. People that haven't spent any time with it, maybe they don't have a lot of time to spend with it, haven't really had the opportunity to understand that, like, okay, the game doesn't really make a lot of sense to you in this fashion. Modify it. The grapple settings, the grapple mechanics don't make any sense to you. Throw them out the fucking window. Don't sit there and let someone else tell you how you should run grapple. That book is a suggestion, right? Go on the internet and Google other RPGs with grapple mechanics and Shanghai that shit. Like, don't think that you have to play the game the way it comes out of the box is the best advice I can give anybody that gets into these hobbies. Because if you think you have to play it the way it comes out of the box, that is setting you up for someone to sell you a new box every year.
Which they're getting ready to do.
Wow, that is perfect. Yes,
I like that. I think that sums that one up. I'm just going to strike that one off the list.
I know we took a long way to get there, but that's something that I felt for a long time is, I played Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 into Pathfinder First Edition for so many years, and it's probably the game I'll go back to, the one that I know the most about. But I recently started playing Powered by the Apocalypse, and Powered by the Apocalypse is a very kind of rules light, role play first, ton of fun type system that is open source and people can grab it and make their own stuff. Check out anything Powered by the Apocalypse on itch, and it's just everywhere. The stuff's great. And watching that and then seeing all the discourse around Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and Starfinder and Spelljammer and all this stuff, I'm like, just homebrew it. Homebrew is the greatest tool that the discerning dungeon master has against all this foolishness. And guys like me, I'll even say that I'm guilty of it, guys like me who have been doing this for a decade plus, almost 2 decades, aren't taking the time to introduce the next generation to the freedom that is mental piracy.
I think we forgot about it. I'm a small rant here. I really do think we forgot how to believe in shit. And we've all three of us have taught before. So my hang up about the whole secret identity thing, like my whole like stickler about that, like why do we all of a sudden want to reveal everything about like the whole like, oh, it's not realistic. This is a fucking superhero.
Well, yeah.
That flies around saving people. Like, why are we sticking that? Like, that has to be realistic? Really? Like, and it's not, but it's not just that. That's just the point I stick on. But I really do think we forgot how to let people believe. And so we kind of hold their hand through like suspension of disbelief stuff. And I think it's starting to affect the way we tell stories and the way we approach things in general.
I think a lot of that comes from just we are more connected than we've ever been, but we are so isolated, right? Like, we don't connect the way we used to. I don't know any of the guys at my local LGS like I'd love to, right? We used
to. I thought about that the other day. We used to, but then sometimes people grow apart and you pick a different store.
Yeah.
You just, you go to your friend's house. It's crazy.
But when you think about that, you think, somebody, a kid that has like 2 friends finds out about Dungeons and Dragons. So he buys a core rule book and he's going to teach his buddies how to play D&D. They're going to learn together. If an experienced DM with a good heart that knows what this game looks like and has seen the good and the bad in those systems come and go over the years, I would venture to say that guy if he encountered this individual who's learning, is partner obligated to help that guy understand that that book is a suggestion. It's, you play this game the way you want. There's no wrong way to play it, right? I know, you go online, you watch like Critical Role, you watch Dimension 20, you watch all these, and you see them have this fun, but you also got to understand each one of them is fundamentally different, and they are playing this game in their own way. And that's the most important thing, because the most fun you can have with this game is the fun you're going to have, not trying to have somebody else's fun.
Big words. I like it. Moving on to the next question. Isaiah, you got something for him?
So, one of the biggest things that happened to everyone almost at the same time was COVID. So you said previously you're coming from 16 years, plus of DMing, having games, and I want to say you can attest that the majority of them, let's easily say 90% were face to face, correct?
To an extent, I played a lot of online D&D is something that's relatively new to me. Yeah, if I'm being honest.
Yep. So how was your transition and thoughts currently on going from that? Obviously we can't see each other, we can't do each other. How easy or hard was it for you to start setting your games up and going digital? Because I remember, with all kinds of shit popped. I mean, with Tabletop Simulator, all that stuff been around for a while, but when COVID happens, it was talked about more. Things, all of a sudden, all of these apps had all these share screen modes and all these share whatever modes. So, what was your process to adjusting to? We still want to meet. We still want to have this campaign and continue this story. How are we going to do that?
I will admit that it didn't affect our group as heavily as it did some others, because at that time I had two separate play groups. One of them was an online group and the other was an in-person group. We had already started doing online stuff when COVID happened, because I had friends all across the country that had joined us for D&D. We had some people come and go, and life happens. Our in-person group suffered a bit for the first little while when it first got really bad. But once the guidance came out and we understood, how we could be safe and how we could take care of each other and all this stuff, luckily nobody in our group was super vulnerable to it or anything like that, or immunocompromised or any of that. So we would still meet. We took the extra precautions that were necessary. We social distance. At the time, I was renting a house that had I couldn't even speculate how big that room was, but you could take me and Sketch arm to arm across the whole room. There probably would have been like 9 of us.
Okay. So y'all could be across from each other.
Very large. And for those of you listening, that's probably a horrible frame of reference because you've never seen either one of us. But I say that to say there's a huge amount of space in this room, so we weren't all on top of each other like you would have been in an LGS. We were playing home games. And I'm playing with people that I trust, that I know are following the guidance, that you're doing everything right. So that didn't really affect us. But I think to answer the spirit of your question, the transition to online D&D was a revelation for me, because I had always been a showman. I had always wanted to make everything big and bombastic and showy and flashy. I loved, for a long time, for personal games, I carried around a laptop, a six-piece speaker set, and 2 or 3 different manuals and 4 notebooks. I had a book bag, a messenger bag, and a box that I would put in the car every time I would go somewhere to play D&D if I wasn't hosting, because I had to have good sound. I had to have all of my reference material. I had to have all my notes. It was a chore, right? But I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I'll never forget the first time we played at Biscuit's house. He's like, "Hey man, I got a little table set up here for, if you need some room." And I show up and it's like a coffee table. And I'm like, "This ain't gonna cut it, homie."
Yeah. She was hilarious.
That was one of the first things I realized I needed when I was getting friends. I said, "Man, we need some tables."
Yeah, you got to have that space. Especially now, even in-person D&D has evolved to the point where like you got a laptop or a tablet and like a rolling tray and a notebook, so your space just gets bigger and bigger.
Soon you're gonna be beaming that shit right in your brain and fucking
Can't wait. But we transitioned to I want to say we transitioned to Discord for D&D in like 2018, 2019. And we were I was immediately in love with it because I didn't have to lug anything around. I didn't have to, set up. My setup time was whenever I wanted it to be. I could just open all the programs and stream it to Discord and sit back and relax. I didn't have any issues. There was but luckily for me, by the time I actually transitioned to online play, all of those resources had already started to pop up even before COVID because people were wanting to do exactly that. We had that big boom of pop culture grabbing up Dungeons and Dragons even before COVID, and people wanted to play. So there were services for hiring a DM and connecting with people that were looking for group and stuff like that. So the transition to Discord was for me effortless because all that stuff already existed.
And you dabble with it with your friends, so damn. So how about those DM services and stuff like that? Yeah, any horror stories from that?
Yeah, a couple. I did being hired as a DM twice, and one time was really wild, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Another time was like, this is why I'm never going to do this again. So the bad story was I'd connected with a service that matched me with a group, and they facilitated everything except the payment, right? So they'd connect you with the people, they'd help you schedule the times and set up the venue and all this other stuff. The only thing they didn't do was they were like, it's your job as the dungeon master to get paid. So if you show up and the players don't want to pay you, you just leave. And I can't tell you how many sessions I would put together. I'd spend like a week putting together a session, and I'd get there and it'd be like two people there and like, we got $1. I'd be like, come on, dude. Like, I love doing this game, but we agreed to turn. Come on now. That was kind of why I got out of that. But there's a memory that I will always keep. I was in college in like 2013. I had just gotten into college, and I needed a part-time job. So it was when I was like, I could DM for money because I'm kind of good at this. And I got roped into a weird, this group of chicks wanted me to do like a smut D&D thing, and I was like, I'd never done that before, and I don't know how, but I'll try. And the only reason I said I'd try is because they're like, we have this number with all these zeros behind it, and I was a broke college kid, so yeah, man. It was a hilarious session. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think I'll ever do it again just because it was awkward, but it was was very fun.
They wanted you to talk about
You
penetration and all that junk.
Well, it never went that far. It never went into you straight up like sexting or anything. It never went completely erotic. But like imagine D&D, but it's a Harlequin novel. So
they ran into the sexy woodcutter, and
everybody's wearing leather pants with you could see all the business, and everybody glistens in the sunlight and all.
Oh god, everybody's wearing fingerless gloves type shit. Oh my god,
like it was one of those things. It was like there's no way in hell I will ever let anyone know that I did this for money, and now here I am on the internet telling everybody I did this for money.
Free. Oh, what happened?
Did you get disconnected? He get disconnected?
I think he got disconnected. He should just be able to join at a different one. And then I'll bring him back. It's no big deal. And then I'll just cut this part.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation, guys. I love it.
Yup. I'm digging this. Oh. Okay, so the objective's over here. Word.
Back online. You should be able to join any channel. Great minds. We were thinking the same thing.
Sorry about that. That my Discord crashed. That was wild.
Dude, no worries. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Right before this happened, I got everything. What I like to do, I get everything set up, all my notes, everything together, whatever. And I got here and I joined the channel. I wanted to create this channel so we weren't bothered anything like that. So I joined this channel, and then I left this channel and I went to the other Discord, and I was like, I'm about to join that one. Went back. All I did was switch, and my shit crashed too. I was like, man, I swear, man.
Yeah, I don't know
This
what that
shit's
was
fucking
about.
broken. It happens, and I told Sketch that too. Like, there'll be a lot of times you'll have sound issues, and the only way to fix it is just to literally restart Discord. It's ridiculous. So,
well, I'm back now. I have no idea what I was saying before.
We were talking about how much you enjoyed the smut campaign you did, and you were going to probably start another one.
Yeah, no. It wasn't one of those things that I said I hated, but it's definitely like, man, that was fucking weird. It probably would have been worse if it had been people I knew. It's probably better that they were strangers.
Yeah.
Probably better that I'm never going to talk to them ever again.
But I mean, that said about being hired to DM, couldn't you also like in that same DM for hire app, you put your campaign out there and then people pay you to come play it type
Sure. There's a million ways to do it. I've seen, people that have like seminars on how to get paid for DMing. And there's a bunch of different ways to get the job done. And I think at the end of the day, what it came down to for me was it was just more effort to keep it straight than I was really interested in putting into it, because there's something to be said about making your hobby a job. It kind of takes some of the piss out of it sometimes. So I kind of got to where, I really would like to do this, but I also feel like making it this much of a job kind of takes some of the fun out of it for me. So, I kind of decided to leave it alone for that reason.
I totally understand that, because especially when you love something like that, I felt the same way about streaming, because I love gaming so much, love sitting with a controller, can do it all fucking day long. But you want to fucking put a camera in front of me and a chat that I gotta pay attention to, all of a sudden I can't. I want to go read a book.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to happen. So I try to find like fun things and whatever. And it's been so much better, honestly, for me to have friends. And now I know I can be more active in the Discord, and everyone's playing games. But it's easy to be like, oh, because we all just jump in and out. Everyone's playing like a bunch of fucking different games. It's so fucking cool. Like, we're adults. We're just chilling.
I always thought from like a perspective of streaming that it would be really cool to start like a streaming collective where like you have a channel that has like 4 or 5 people that are on it, and as opposed to like one person having to stream like 4 or 5 days out of the week or some such, you just like you queue into a stream and you never know who you're going to get or what they're going to be playing or whatever, and maybe you have a favorite that you start to follow or something like that. But I always wondered what kind of traction that could get.
That's pretty cool. I'll be willing to start that with you. Sketch, you down? You don't have to be on cam.
I don't think I could get. I don't think I could get on Twitch live. They would ban me immediately. I'd be talking too much.
That's another thing that keeps me from streaming too. Sometimes these games be making me feel a certain type of way.
Yeah, you be saying offside stuff, and they be like, "Hey."
And our generation, we're at the generation that some of those words are still kind of on the tip of our tongue. So
we have all the anger of the boomers, but all the creativity of the zoomers, and it's not going to end well for us.
I think the last like D&D question that I've had, and excluding I know the sketches and what some of your campaigns and stuff like that, but what just prior to your current friend group, So, what was your favorite campaign? I mean, let's include everything because I want to know your favorite. I want to know which one you had the most. Well, I guess completed campaign. What was your completed campaign that you had the most fun with?
So a couple of years ago, our current long play friend group played Pathfinder's first edition adventure path Mummy's Mask. And the adventure path itself is well written, but I wouldn't say that by itself it deserves like to be enshrined in a Hall of Fame somewhere. It is good at what it does, but it is passing. It gets a passing grade. But the players showed up in a way I had not anticipated. That game included there were 5 players in that game. One of them, our good friend Biscuit, had been playing with us for a while, had kind of gotten to know how his playstyle was and what he liked. Wrote a solid backstory for a dwarven paladin of Pharasma. Great stuff. Had another friend of ours who was new to the group in the game, but not new to role playing. Farrell Winter. She ended up playing a Asimar monk, and I found out very quickly that she was also a dungeon master. And session 0, she showed up with a novel. Like, that trope of like, oh, the player that just writes backstory like it's a job. Man, does she get down like that. And it was the first time I'd played with someone like that, and I was so enthralled with the character she wrote. Another friend of ours, what's his screen name? Tainted Corn Dog, I think is his current screen name.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yes.
Showed
Tainted
up
Corn Dog.
Tainted Corn Dog, it's whatever. Also showed up as a paladin, but a half-elf paladin with a draconic bloodline on some homebrew type shit. That was wild. Had our friend, our pet named Steve, showed up as a cleric of the god, the dead god Horus, and we eventually worked him into becoming the reincarnation of Horus. That was a lot of fun. And then our 5th was our friend Kitty, playing a Finnic Kitsune sorcerer named Fireball. We played that game for the better part of 2 years. And the stories we told with those characters were so incredibly ingrained into not only who we were as a group, but who we were as individuals. And it spoke, like, it's one of those exercises where, like, you put a bunch of pieces in place and you think, oh, these are great. This is where these pieces go. And then they line up in such a way to go, wow, we couldn't do that again if we tried. Mummy's Mask for us was one of those lightning in a bottle games where just everything lined up just right to be probably one of the greatest experiences. And we still talk about that game to this day as probably our crowning achievement as a group. I know for a fact it's one of the games I'm most proud of as a dungeon master, because the writing that we did as a group for those characters in that game was just some of the best I've ever done.
It was awesome.
Yeah, there are like 3 campaigns that kind of circle the talk of the group, and that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's always in the conversation.
It's usually that one, Rise the Eldrazi, and Rune Lords.
Yep.
All right, and this is going to be for both of you guys to finish this out. I want to know both of your favorite characters that you've created, because I mean we talked to Raziel a lot, but Sketch, he's been in all these games too, and some of the accents he has for some of these characters are fucking hilarious. And him, and watching him and our friend Kitty fucking talk to each other during these things, it's awesome. Like, I've seen it in person. It's awesome. So favorite characters.
I'll let him go first.
I played a Rougarou Monk of the Four Winds.
For those who don't know, what is a Rougarou?
Rougarou is a wolf dog hybrid folk. So it's think of essentially like a dog folk. Rougarou Monk of the Four Winds, named Terry Bruise.
Like Super Avatar?
Terry spoke like Macho Man Randy Savage.
Ooh.
Because that was an accent that we were just playing around during character creation, and it just kind of came out as the thing I decided to do.
Harry, you missed.
Terry is aware because everybody can do almost everybody that grew up on wrestling can do a Macho Man Randy Savage impression. So it's a pretty well mimicked thing. But I enjoyed being a goofy like wrestling archetype with lightning powers. It was some of the most fun I've ever had just being half cocked.
Catch.
For me, I'd have to say it'd be Ludovic Timaeus. It was a character I came up with during I think it was Birthright.
Yes.
He's a character with split personality disorder. I always see the tragic backstory, and it gives everybody cool powers and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to turn that on its head. Like, what if this cool and tragic backstory really messed up my character? And so, before the incident where he knows too much and gets like shot in the head and left for dead, he was basically a brain. Like he was a part librarian, archivist / alchemist. And when they find out he knows too much, he gets popped in the head and left for dead. He survives, and it splits his brain into different personalities. Over time, this evolved, and now all the personalities have distinct like personalities of their own, like they're actual people now.
So you mean they're like whole people?
Yeah, they're whole people now. They have like their own backstories and things like that. One of which is a man that rides a small Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I love how we always start with serious and it inevitably meanders into
Absolutely.
completely.
I was like, here you go. What
Yeah.
is it? What's
Yeah, her name is Queenie, and she has so much sass. I also love goofy characters. Like I love the duality between like goofy and serious. So like he's crazy. He talks to himself all the time, and like most of the things that he handles will blow up on you. But at the same time, he's got a heart of gold, and he wants to help people. And there's also a mechanical monstrosity that is hell-bent on eating everything on Earth and him. So yeah.
No
this
pressure.
Is your current character?
He's on the back pedal now, but he was the current character I was playing.
Okay, you let me know when you're playing that guy. I will definitely want to jump in.
So our live play is Tuesdays at 9. We're gonna be.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell to get all our notifications.
There you go.
Oh my God, we'll not be doing that.
We really appreciate you stopping by to talk to us and just chit chat, man. It was great.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me. I talk a lot about D&D if that's your purview, but I talk a lot about anything, so it's always nice.
If you would indulge me one last question. We talked about how COVID and Discord changed D&D and how like D&D becoming popular. Get your temperature on this. What would you like to see in the future for the streaming of D&D? Like what new advances would be, neat? One or two, just off the top of your dome. It could be quality of life. They could be, like outlandish.
I don't really have a solid answer for that, I don't think. I think that everything is growing and changing so quickly in regards to the digital space for this hobby that
Right.
it gets there's a million options for everything. If you want a site to host your character sheets, there's a dozen options. There's dozens of options for virtual tabletops. I think that
host your own games, right, with Roll20 and D&D Beyond.
I think we are living in the best time for that, honestly. And if we're going to see any genuine improvement to it, it is support for integration of these things. Like being able to build a character in a character sheet and then export its figures to a token so that you can kind of automate its HP and spell uses and things like that. If it could be done in a way that wasn't unwieldy, that would probably be like the top tier for me, barring like virtual reality, to a point. But
they're gonna make Baldur's Gate a thing, so
I think honestly, like that full integration from creating almost like a workflows for character to token to live play pipeline type stuff, like making that an easily accessible automated thing for quality of life would probably be like the king of achievements if it were out there. But I know we're kind of slowly working towards that. There's a lot of good projects out there that are working towards stuff like that. So I think honestly, within the next couple of years, we'll probably see something like that.
That's gonna be so cool, man. Like to be able to have like a digital visual and your character's like, oh, your character walks into a room and then the person can program walk into a room and just fucking RPG style, boom, enemies appear. Or we walked into tall grass and some shit. Like I can't. Cannot. It's gonna be so cool. But I mean that doesn't. So it won't take to me, I feel like a lot of it is using your imagination and stuff like that. And while that may take a little bit away from that, I still feel like the ultimate thing about the campaign is that it's a story. It's the DM's brainchild that gets mucked up because the players are doing all kinds of shit that they never planned for. That's the shit that makes a game. And I love that part of it.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I think that no matter how good the visuals or those tools get, that ability to spin a yarn is never going to go anywhere. It's always going to have to be part of the equation.
The best and worst places, and this is just a life lesson, but the best and worst place to live at any given time is in someone else's mind. Because you'll never be better and you'll never be worse. And the fact that a dungeon master can control that, I think, number one, gives them a responsibility to help craft the best experience possible. But accepting that kind of it kind of makes you honest and opens you up to creating a better story just by understanding the weight of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cooperative, but the dungeon master pulls a lot of weight. And you got to be prepared to do that, but you got to be prepared to do it for the right reasons. And you can't be out here trying to be the main character of a story that's not, just yours.
Yeah.
The best kind of trust fall.
I'm really hoping that, once I get my shit, I want to start another campaign, be in another campaign someday. But right now I'm gonna watch. But
hey, you let me know.
Again, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us. Again, these are the conversations that we've had on my back porch, and obviously the basis of the idea of even just doing a project like this, and it's really great. And there's did you know real shit? This because we always keep talking, but did you know real quick that because I do my doing a little research, so I don't look completely crazy when I talk about certain things or whatever. I noticed that the tabletop community as a whole has its fair share of evolving to today's standards when it comes to social networking and stuff like blah blah blah. Because one of the fucking biggest talks, at least on the TikTok side, of tabletop and D&D and all stuff like that is about how this one dude was fucking 4 other girls at D&D conventions and tabletop conventions and stuff.
Oh wow.
Just crazy. I'm like, man, I was like, I'm trying to look how cool people's table setups. How did I get down this rabbit hole of RPG news. Whose news is this?
My brother in Christ, you showed up to a D&D convention. Play D&D. Stop with all that foolishness.
Yeah.
I ain't got time for none of that, man. Like if I'm at like PAX East, or if I'm if I'm at a convention for tabletop games, I ain't nothing else going on.
Yeah, right. What the fuck? But
I spent all this time. I spent all this time on manuals and fucking characters and actual paper. I ain't got time for you.
I'm here to put on a funny hat, talk with a funny voice, and roll these funny dice.
Exactly. Go away, bitch. Drawing shapes.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to check out the links below. We're gonna drop all the socials and stuff like that. Rosie, I know you don't necessarily like have a store or anything like that, so we're gonna drop Kitty's link in the description.
I'll have one to float to you here soon. We're getting ready to.
We'll drop them both.
Yeah, I'll have one to float to you here soon. We're getting ready to kick up some stuff, but thanks for having me, and y'all be good out here.
Absolutely. Once again, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. I always want to say that.
It's fine.